This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. You could end up paying more for some cans of beer if U.S. President Donald Trump moves forward with his threats on tariffs. Trump says sweeping tariffs on most Canadian imports will come into effect next week. But he's also threatened additional 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum set for the week after. It's brewing up concerns for some craft beer makers here at home who already deal with slim margins. The CBC's Alana Cole explains.
At Little Brown Jug in Winnipeg's Exchange District, the beer is made here. But those cans, they come from the U.S. And founder Kevin Selch estimates they use more than 1 million of them a year.
The impact of a 25% tariff for us is probably about 5 or 6 cents per can, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in manufacturing, margins are really, really tight. And so we're always fighting to make the price 5 cents cheaper or to save 5 cents.
Selch says right now he can't source 16-ounce cans made in Canada. So he's watching closely as President Donald Trump threatens tariffs on most Canadian imports, including aluminum. He wants to see how Canada responds too. It's all creating uncertainty when it comes to expanding costs and prices.
You really just have to wait and see how prices end up getting adjusted and whether we pass them on. We're not going to get in front of this with raising our prices before we need to.
At Torque, head brewer and operations manager Perry Joyle says possible tariffs have him worrying about financial impacts.
This is one that we keep bringing back every year because people seem to really like it.
He paid roughly 18 cents a can on his last order. He wouldn't be surprised to see that cost double. He says that could be tough for craft brewers.
We don't have, maybe as much room in terms of, how much profit we're going to make from one can compared to one of the bigger macro breweries. Like they might be able to absorb that hit better than we can. This, for some small breweries, that's devastating if they have to, look at either taking in a lot less profit or raising their cans in price to the point where they're not, reasonable for the consumer.
The founder of Barnhammer Brewing Company, Tyler Birch, says he doesn't expect Trump to follow through on the threat.
I think the current government got elected on the platform of reducing costs, and the first thing they're going to do is increase costs of everything by 25%. I think there's going to be a big problem if that happens. On a lot of levels.
Birch says he doesn't want to raise prices, so will try to eat any additional costs as long as he can. But for now, he's among those waiting to see what happens south of the border. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Tired, frustrated, and concerned. It seems like fires are a recurring and near daily problem in some parts of the city. It's led a group of North End residents to take matters into their own hands. A meeting tonight is set to see what can be done to stop them before they start. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Fire after fire after fire. Some people think they were started deliberately, others blame human error. But Michael Redhead Champagne with North End History wants to help figure out how to stop them.
And right now in the North End of Winnipeg, we are regularly dealing with older buildings that are going up in flames, and it just feels constant.
Tim Shorting has only lived on Flora Avenue for 4 months. The place next door recently had a fire. It's boarded up and empty. Shorting worries if there's another one, his house will go down with it.
Look at how close these houses are. They're only 2-3 feet apart. You get a good gust of wind, then this house is going to be next.
Seems pretty scary.
Oh yeah, it is.
On top of safety concerns, Redhead Champagne says the goal for Tuesday's meeting is to address why the fires are happening.
What do they see as some of the possible sources of these consistent fires? And if we can identify some of those sources, that's obviously where we want to then focus our energy in trying to prevent these things from happening too.
Longtime North Ender Mary Burton agrees community is part of the solution. She also thinks the city and province have a role to play too.
If there was more units in the neighborhood, in not just the north end, but all over the city, then we wouldn't have people squatting in vacant buildings. If there was more people who were able to alleviate their poverty, we wouldn't have so many vacant buildings going up in flames.
Instead of seeing buildings like these reduced to rubble, both Burton and Redhead Champaign want to preserve them for the future of the North End. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Tens of thousands of liters of raw sewage spilled into the Red River over the weekend. It happened in Glen Elm on Sunday. An overflow alarm at the Hart Avenue lift station alerted the city to the incident shortly after 3 a.m. A spokesperson says they found 2 opened fire hydrants and the water was draining into the combined sewer outfall near the Harry Lazarenko Bridge. It's unclear who opened the hydrants, but the city says it was not authorized. It caused about 30,000 liters of raw sewage to spill into the river over roughly 21 minutes. There have been at least 5 other raw sewage spills into the Red since the beginning of the year. Systemic discrimination is a lingering issue in Manitoba's healthcare system. That's according to First Nations leaders who say change needs to happen. It comes after a Cree man says he wasn't treated in hospital for his pain, instead saying his concerns were dismissed as a hangover. And as CBC's Mike Arsenault explains, they're calling on government to address the issue.
The day started with a prayer and a drum circle before First Nations leaders and supporters marched from Udena Circle to the Legislative Building. Their message: end racism and discrimination in the Manitoba healthcare system. Justin Flett from Tatasqueyak Cree Nation knows firsthand how First Nations people can be treated unfairly at the hospital.
To me, the doctor made me feel like nothing. Worthless.
In January 2023, Flett was visiting his mother when he started getting sharp abdominal pain and nausea. He went to St. Anthony's General Hospital in the Pas when he got this response from a doctor.
I don't know what to tell you. We don't treat you here for hangovers.
Flett was suffering from appendicitis, although he didn't know it at the time. He decided to take an 11-hour bus ride from the Pas to Winnipeg, where his appendix burst while he was waiting in hospital. Dr. Barry Lavalley works to improve healthcare outcomes for First Nations people. He says Flett's misdiagnosis was the result of stereotypes and discrimination.
The doctor assumed he was drunk or assumed what happened in his belly was related to his alcohol. Then he used his power to deny access to care. And now this man probably is going to suffer all of his life.
Health Minister Uzuma Azuguara says they spoke with Flett Monday about his healthcare experience. They say making sure healthcare workers have all the tools they need to provide dignified care starts before they join the front lines.
It needs to be accessed in education, so post-secondary institutions need to make sure that they're playing their part in providing anti-racism education to healthcare training students.
Azuguara says they'll continue to support initiatives that provide anti-racism training to healthcare workers.
Racism, I never really knew what it meant till it happened. I never looked at it. So you know your life depends on it.
Flett filed a lawsuit against the doctor in the Pas, the Northern Regional Health Authority, and the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. None of these allegations have been proven in court. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's top doctor is urging you to get the flu shot amid a late spike in cases. Influenza cases are trending upward past their normal peak this winter. Chief Provincial Public Health Officer Dr. Brent Rusin says the uptick is putting a strain on the healthcare system.
It's certainly not too late to get vaccinated. Our numbers are still climbing, and we often get that second wave of influenza. And so if you haven't yet been vaccinated, I would suggest you speak with our healthcare provider.
Influenza vaccination rates in Manitoba are down compared to last flu season. Cases elsewhere in Canada have also seen a rise in recent weeks. Riley Laychuk in now. Riley, we've seen lots of people home sick in this weather, but so many others getting outside to enjoy it.
Yeah, another decent day, albeit sloppy today, Brittany, and really rinse and repeat as we get into the day tomorrow. So yes, we did enjoy some sunshine across parts of southern Manitoba. I know we did see some of that sunshine in Winnipeg, but don't have to go too far north to see a little bit of cloud cover. And out of this, the first of what will be a parade of low pressure systems that'll impact our province over the coming days. So that means our temperatures going up and down, sky conditions, cloud cover, you name it, in some way will be impacted really province-wide, which we'll get into in your long-range forecast. 3 degrees downtown this afternoon, 5 in Portage, 6 in Morden Winkler, 1 degree in Brandon, and you can see where some of that colder air is into northern Manitoba, minus 26 in Churchill this afternoon. With that freeze thaw, a little bit of sun today, comes the risk of some patchy fog into the overnight hours tonight. Minus 4 in Winnipeg, looking at a temperature in the morning around minus 3, and maybe some flurries through the afternoon tomorrow, but above freezing once again. We'll talk about that and a little bit more substantial snow when I come back.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
One of the North's major airlines is being sold, and a Winnipeg-based corporation is on the buying end. More on that straight ahead. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. One of the North's major airlines has been sold to a Winnipeg-based company. Canadian North was bought by public company Exchange Income Corporation at a price of more than $200 million. The airline was Inuit-owned for years. CBC's Emma Tranter has that story.
Exchange Income Corporation already owns several northern airlines, including Calm Air and Keewatin Air. Canadian North is currently owned by Makivik Corporation and the Inuvialuit Corporation, two Inuit organizations. With the sale, that will no longer be the case. Makivik President Peta Atami says the airline long faced financial troubles.
Canadian North has been in big debt for many years, and it has been running for 35 years, and we had to loan from the banks.
Exchange Income's president says they've been in talks for a while, and that nothing, including routes or fares, will change once the purchase goes through.
Canadian North operates the way it does, and we're not looking to come in and change what they do. It's more of enhancing what they do and trying to allow them to have the tools to do it on a more robust basis than they've been able to do it in the past.
But this aviation expert at McGill University cautions that Exchange Income is a public company and is there to make money. He does expect changes in Canadian North's operations.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. This is a reduction in competition.
Canadian North declined an interview with CBC. The sale has yet to be approved by regulators and is expected to be finalized later this year. Emma Tranter, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Winnipeggers should brace themselves for a spike in their water rates. A report is expected to be released next week, but the Council's Water and Waste Committee says officials are working to keep the rate increase as low as possible. It comes while the city faces high costs for major capital projects, including a $3 billion North End sewage treatment plant, much of which remains unfunded. One city councillor says unless other levels of government provide the money, ratepayers will be on the hook. The city could expand eligibility of a utility subsidy program for low-income households. Police are warning about a recent spike in violence and increasing gang activity. According to police, officers have been called out to a number of shootings in the last 2 weeks. They say officers have found 6 firearms in possession of suspected gang members in recent days.
I will bring to the attention we've had 3 shootings in our area in the last 10 to 12 days. It appears we may have a gang situation brewing.
Cops say 4 people were arrested Sunday night, all suspected of gang involvement, and another 4, including 2 suspected gang members, were picked up last night. Youth outreach workers tell CBC News the violence is linked to a lack of resources and opportunities. A major renovation to Winnipeg's oldest building is getting a nearly $2 million funding boost from the feds. The St. Boniface Museum has operated in the former Grey Nuns Convent and Mission House on Taché Avenue since 1967. In June 2024, it closed its doors for renovations, expected to cost $4 million. It includes strengthening the roof structure, upgrading energy systems, replacing damaged exterior finishes, and building an accessibility ramp. This is the first major infrastructure project at the museum in over 30 years. Doors are set to reopen in 2026 in time for the building's 175th anniversary. Students in a Western Manitoba school division will be singing God Save the King soon. The decision was made during a Mountain View School Division board meeting last night. The chair says singing the anthem is part of the Public Schools Act, so it needs to be in schools. The act says the first verse of God Save the King should be sung daily. The Manitoba School Boards Association says it doesn't know of any schools maintaining that tradition. One trustee worries the change will negatively impact Indigenous students and staff. He says the division's Indigenous student population is 37%.
Well, I stood for 12 years in this school division as a student saying, God save the Queen, not knowing the history and all that about it. We weren't taught it in school, but now we are, and we need to make that change. Those don't belong in our school system.
Manitoba's education minister says the royal anthem legislation is under review. It was a record-setting night in Winnipeg. That is Mark Scheifele scoring a game winner for the Jets in OT. The goal, which gave the Jets a 2-1 win over San Jose, was the 329th of Scheifele's career. That's a franchise record for the second coming of the Winnipeg Jets. It also gave the team a franchise record 10th straight win. The Jets will take on Ottawa tomorrow night. Well, it's a good thing they're on the ice skating because a lot of ODRs are closed right now because of these warm temperatures. Some kids may be upset by that. Others pretty happy just to be outside with a few layers.
I mean, so the outdoor rinks are closing. The freeze thaw has also led to a lot of potholes as well. And this trend continues. I mean, a bit of a cool down on the weekend, but certainly we're looking at that freeze thaw continuing over the next several days. And for parts of the north, a parade of systems, which isn't as fun as it sounds. I want to start with our snow depth because, you know, we've had a few days where we've seen some melting here across southern Manitoba, and that has really had an impact on our snowpack, particularly here in the Red River Valley. So officially at the airport, as of yesterday, only 2 centimeters left on the ground in terms of snowfall. I mean, maybe you have a little more in your backyard, but certainly not a lot left, according to some of this modeling across the Red River Valley. But looking to the west, the Riding Mountains into the Duck Mountains, into that blue, into that purple, looking at still up to 30 centimeters plus on the ground through western Manitoba and into the north as well. So some pretty healthy snowpack in the north, and that is going to continue to fall as we get into the coming days here. So here's the first area of low pressure as it skirts off into northwestern Ontario. We start sunny tomorrow, but here's area of low pressure number 2 as it begins to move into Manitoba as we get into the early morning hours on Wednesday. This brings with it, at least according to this forecast model, I think a chance of some scattered flurries to the afternoon hours tomorrow across the south. This particular model is pushing the snow a little bit further south, but I think it will stay north along that jet stream track as we get through the afternoon hours. So I think, you know, anticipate later afternoon tomorrow that we could see some flurries across southern Manitoba, particularly in the Red River Valley. Okay, that moves out by the time we get into Thursday. We're back to a mainly cloudy sky. And then comes system number 3, and this one will bring another round of accumulating snow to northern Manitoba. I think this one has a better chance of bringing us some snow or some rain to southern Manitoba as we get through Friday. Behind that, though, a cold front, and this is going to plunge our temperatures back down closer to seasonal as we get through the day on Friday and particularly into Saturday. So this takes us out to Thursday morning, and you can see this area here along the jet stream path where we are expecting 5-6 centimeters of snow for Flin Flon into Norway House, Barons River. Tack on to that what's coming from that next round as we get into Friday, and you can see these amounts enhancing up to 15, even 20 centimeters of snow by the time we get to the weekend for parts of northern Manitoba. So a few shots of snow coming to the north. In the south, though, we start at -3 tomorrow in Winnipeg, around -5 really across much of the west as we see those colder temperatures in the north. Up to +1 again tomorrow, and Brittany, we start the day on Friday at freezing, dropping as that cold front sweeps through, and seasonal as we get into the weekend.
Okay, thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, those temperatures brought another gorgeous day today, and we have to take another short break. Lots of people still out there walking. This is more to come straight after this. Stay with us. It's debate part 2 for the Liberal leadership campaign. Monday night saw the candidates square off in French. This evening, they take part in the final official one in English. Rafi Boudjikanian looks at how the 4 candidates are doing.
Il faut changer la manière de gérer nos dépenses.
Mark Carney struggling to say on the debate stage in French the government needs to control spending to get to a balanced budget. Then there was this flub,
Nous sommes d'accord avec Hamas.
where he used the wrong preposition, accidentally suggesting he supported Hamas. Conservatives this morning seizing on Carney's stumbles in his second language.
Do I think that Mark Carney agrees with Hamas? No, but he certainly did create some uncertainty because he wasn't able to be clear in one of Canada's 2 official languages.
As the main candidate who has boosted Liberals in general political opinion polls, all eyes are on Carney tonight. But the English debate will provide his rivals too with the opportunity to explain themselves in the language where they're most at home.
We have to spend more to defend ourselves right now. And that's why I put forward in my suite of policy proposals a plan to get up to 2% of defense spending by 2027.
I believe in Canada, and I believe that we can tackle these big issues like housing, like affordability, like fighting climate change, like actually creating an economy that builds more entrepreneurs. And so I am going to continue to share this vision with Canadians.
I'm the only person that has the experience in both the business world and in the political world. I've been elected and I've been a person that's created jobs. So this gives me a unique perspective to how to make our economy run.
As they did in French, the contenders will start off tonight by tackling how to handle U.S. President Donald Trump and his tariff threats, once again reminding Canadians of his impact on politics far beyond his borders. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, Canada's national holiday may be months away, but a Canada Day of sorts was being witnessed in Washington. The event was for U.S. government officials invited to visit an array of information tables representing Canadian agencies. And as the CBC's Katie Simpson reports, the goal was clear.
This is what diplomatic engagement looks like. Canadian officials organizing a lunch in one of the busiest office buildings on Capitol Hill, inviting in staffers and American lawmakers, trying to share the anti-tariff message really at any level they can. Canada's Ambassador Kirsten Hillman saying that even though Donald Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on Canada, to go ahead with those tariffs on March 4th as planned, that there are some positive signs for the White House that the things Canada is doing to try to get out of those tariffs, the improvements to the border, the cracking down on the illegal drug trade, that it is starting to resonate in Washington.
So there's a lot that is being achieved, and we are getting positive feedback on that. That is what I'm hearing. You know, and I get asked the question, will it be enough? There's one person who can answer that question, but what I do believe Canadians can feel confident is that we are taking these requests very seriously. We are delivering important results, and that is being well received.
Some lawmakers did stop by this event, but the engagement will actually take place beyond these walls right here. A number of different diplomats, as well as Canadian members of Parliament, they have a long list of meetings with influential Americans as they try to get that message across really at any level they can. Now, some lawmakers did stop by the lunch, and they were open to Canada's message, really welcoming it.
Got a couple little differences, but it's a sheet with a few wrinkles. So we're going to iron those out, and we're going to move forward, because Americans, at the end of the day, absolutely love Canadians, and I think vice versa.
We are forces against the evil around the world, and we've stood together for more than 7 decades that way, and I expect us to continue to.
Donald Trump has threatened 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods, as well as 10% tariffs on Canadian energy, unless those changes to the northern border are put in place to his liking. But there are more deadlines on the horizon. March 12th, possible steel and aluminum tariffs. Then there's possible auto tariffs, and then there's possible big picture trade irritant tariffs. There are so many different deadlines that the Trump administration is looking at. The bigger picture issue here is how do Canadian officials find a way to get out of the cycle of threat and deadline, threat and deadline. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is set to visit the White House later this week. Ahead of that trip, he made a key announcement on defense spending, one that appears timed to answer a major demand from President Donald Trump, but is also being slammed by aid groups. CBC's Crystal Gamansing reports from our London bureau.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer says starting in 2027, the UK will spend £13.4 billion more on defence every year. That works out to just over $24 billion Canadian. That is 2.5% of GDP on defence, meeting a renewed U.S. demand for NATO countries to spend more on their own security.
A new approach to defence, a revival of our industrial base, a deepening of our alliances, the instruments of our national power brought together, creating opportunity, assuring our allies, delivering security for our country.
This spring, the Labour government was expected to share a roadmap for how it would increase defence spending. But instead of a plan, we were given a start date. Given the tight financial situation here, money is being taken from development aid. That budget will be reduced to 0.3% of GDP. Save the Children's UK office called it a betrayal. In a statement posted to social media, it said the move makes the world a more dangerous place for children. Starmer acknowledged extremely difficult and painful choices having to be made to prioritize security. Kemi Badenoch is the opposition Conservative leader and supports the move, saying it's being done in the national interest.
I'm very pleased to hear the Prime Minister announce that increase to 2.5% by 2027. All of us on this side of the House welcome that. We've all wanted to see more spending on defence.
Now, the funding increase could pave way for a more productive meeting between Starmer and U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday. Starmer says the U.S. is the most important bilateral partner for the U.K. in terms of growth, trade, and security. But he says he has not taken sides or choosing one ally over another. He says the UK is committed to supporting Ukraine in the face of Russia's, quote, vile assault launched 3 years ago. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
An estimated 6.5 million Canadians are without access to a family doctor or nurse practitioner. There are a lot of problems in primary care, but there are solutions underway too. As part of a new series we're calling The Cure, CBC's Heather Gillis takes a look at what some provinces and territories are doing to find a remedy to the primary care crisis.
Kristen Walsh knows firsthand how hard it is to live with multiple chronic conditions and not have a family doctor. Last year, she says she spent $2,000 out of pocket to see a nurse practitioner, something not covered in her province.
And then there was a point where I had a lot of edema, like leg swelling, so I was going like almost every week to see like, has the swelling improved with the medication change, or do I need to make another change? And every visit is a subsequent cost, so it can get very costly.
She's far from alone. A new report from Health Canada says this country is 23,000 family doctors short.
Hi, Joanne.
To fix the problem, the provinces have been investing more.
This payment model for family doctors will...
2 years ago, BC introduced a new payment model to bump family doctor pay from about $250,000 up to $385,000 a year. The province says it's since attracted 1,000 new doctors.
Which means that the capacity in the system, in terms of how many patients can I look after, there hasn't really been a change with the new payment model.
Now, this doctor and primary care researcher says it is time to focus on improvements to team-based care, connecting more patients with existing doctors. On the opposite coast, Nova Scotia is launching a physician assessment centre of excellence to get more internationally trained doctors working.
What we're trying to do here is to develop a better, quicker, reliable, safe way to identify competent physicians.
It could add up to 40 new doctors a year, drastically cutting assessment time from 18 months down to 12 weeks, with trainees seeing patients who don't have primary care. In Yukon, about 4,000 people don't have a family doctor. In Whitehorse alone, the Medical Association expects 40% of doctors will leave or retire in the next 5 years, making a bad situation worse. So they're planning a new residency program by 2027.
Essentially, the hope is that we would have the ability to train family doctors locally here, because currently there is no option to do that.
In Ontario and BC, new medical schools are opening up. In other provinces, schools are expanding and some are adding additional seats, but new doctors won't graduate for years. And Kristen Walsh says change can't come fast enough.
We're seeing people slip through the cracks every day.
Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Now, for the full story, you can watch The Cure on The National tonight at 10 p.m. on CBC TV and CBC Gem. A potentially catastrophic crash was narrowly averted this morning at Chicago's Midway Airport. It's just the latest in a series of airline incidents in North America in recent weeks. An inbound Southwest Airlines plane avoided a collision with a private jet. Airline officials say the flight crew was forced to perform a go-around in order to prevent a crash, and the passenger plane was able to then land safely. The Federal Aviation Administration says the private jet entered the runway without authorization. Heading south, way south, why Canadian scientists are setting sail to the Antarctic, all in the name of climate change. More on that story after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us.
This is Manitoba. And this is Manitoba on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News Manitoba, streaming now.
It's one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time, the sudden disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Officials announced today there's a fresh search for the aircraft, which disappeared more than a decade ago. Malaysia's transport minister says a seabed exploration company is resuming the hunt for the missing plane. It was carrying 239 people when it disappeared while en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing in March 2014. The plane has never been found, but some debris has washed up over the years. Back in December, the Malaysian government agreed to launch a new search. Well, it's the first all-Canadian Antarctic expedition, with the country's scientists and Navy working together on a mission to study the South Pole, where Arctic experts will see firsthand how climate change is playing out at the other end of the world. Susan Ormiston reports from aboard the Canadian Navy ship as it heads south.
En route to Antarctica, HMCS Margaret Brooke navigating through the southernmost tip of Chile. The landscape, a preview of the icy continent ahead, which is warming at an accelerating pace.
Dead slow, head both engines. Dead slow, head both engines.
An unprecedented voyage.
This mission for the Royal Canadian Navy will be the first of any Royal Canadian naval ship to be heading as far south as we are right now. We're really spreading our wings and seeing how we can help support polar science as a whole, not just Antarctic, but Arctic science.
There's going to be like 1 or 2 extra hooks, right?
The Navy is hosting 15 research scientists from across Canada, Arctic experts who will work to unlock climate clues from the southern pole, which helps regulate our climate.
It provides this polar analog to the Canadian Arctic, and it's going to let us learn about environmental changes that are occurring in Antarctica and let us compare those changes to what we observe in our own Arctic.
The Margaret Brooke started this leg of Operation Projection in Punta Arena, Chile, to pick up the science team and wave the Canadian flag at the Chilean Antarctic Institute, signaling ambitions for closer collaboration.
It's a true polar collaboration.
Canada is a signatory to the Antarctic Treaty, which governs the continent, but it wants to be a stronger strategic player.
That it's very important to have knowledge of both poles. There's a lot of things happening right now, and so it's very good that we are present here in the Southern Hemisphere.
Just Monday, the Margaret Brooke released its lines and, flanked by tugboats, left its Chilean port. For nearly 4 weeks at sea, an epic journey to the Antarctic Peninsula, still more than 2 days away.
Ahead of here is the Drake Passage, where the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Southern Oceans converge, making it one of the roughest sea crossings in the world. But on the other side, the White Continent, where Canada's science diplomacy, with the help of the Canadian Navy, will truly begin. Susan Ormiston, CBC News in southern Chile.
Looks like a windy day at sea for her.
Exactly.
Didn't really see much wind when I was out there this morning. Nicer temperatures, as we said before. I didn't have to put on that big winter coat, which has been really nice for the last few days. But there is some snow on the way.
There's a little bit of snow on the way. I think a chance of that in the Red River Valley, more so places north, like Barons River into Norway House, but messy here in the south.
Yeah.
With that, not only the freeze thaw, but the melting that we see during the day with the potential for some fog into the morning hours as well. So
lots of windshield wiper
fluid.
Yeah,
that, and we gave up the cold temperatures for this.
Exactly, so. Right? Give and take.
Exactly. Not a bad morning tomorrow for a dog walk either. Let's have a look at your dog walking forecast. So a brighter start to the day tomorrow, again across southern Manitoba. It's not until we get into the afternoon hours that we'll start to see that cloud filling in once again. So a brighter start, a brighter walk tomorrow morning for Puppies like Bella. Thank you, Angela, for sending this picture in. You can please keep sending your pets to talkback at cbc.ca. I think Bella will be comfortable tomorrow morning. Temperatures close to the freezing mark to start, -3 in Winnipeg, with that cloud starting to build in. By the time we get to the afternoon, I think we do have a chance we could see a few scattered flurries at 1 degree and sticking around the freezing mark as we get into the evening hours tomorrow. So looking at your overnight forecast, as mentioned, we do have that risk of some patchy fog tonight. I think a greater risk of that tonight in the Red River Valley versus last night, just because we have seen a little bit of melting today. Dew point temperatures will be pretty close to this through the early morning hours tomorrow, which is a good recipe for some of that fog to form. Temperatures -5 to -7s in the west, a bit more cloud into northwestern Ontario as well. And this swath across northern Manitoba is where we're anticipating seeing some snow into the day on Wednesday. -8 in the Pod, -9 in Grand Rapids, Norway House at -12 overnight. So you can see, according to this forecast model, at least as we get into the morning hours, the chance of that fog. I don't mean to say this is exactly where we'll see that fog forming, but certainly that is where we have the chance of seeing some patchy fog developing into the overnight hours. By the afternoon hours tomorrow, most of that snow out of northern Manitoba, but still a chance of seeing a few stray flurries as we get into the afternoon hours tomorrow. By the time we get to 6 a.m. Thursday, 5 to 6 centimeters on the ground of fresh snow across much of northern Manitoba, and more coming as we get into the day on Friday. Into southern Manitoba by the lunch hour, we start to see some of that snow across northern Manitoba, or the northern part of southern Manitoba. Some of this could even be mixing, I think, with some rain, because particularly in Dauphin, looking at temperatures above 0, and Brittany, a chance of seeing some of this into the Red River Valley through the later afternoon, albeit I think this does stay a little bit further north as we get through the afternoon hours, but do expect a few scattered flurries into the afternoon.
It comes with the temperatures.
Yes.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, many people have a hard time mastering one language, let alone 5. But that's what one Winnipeg teenager has done. The 17-year-old felt he was falling behind his friends by only speaking English. His story is told through filmmaking students in the CREATE program at Sisler High School.
Hi, my name is Eric Ray. Men is ibnata urokiv. Med det finns gamla lära tungomål till tangas övrum. Así es porque estoy aprendiendo español y islandés y ucraniano. Ate tahajia Punjabi bolla. Most of my friends are bilingual, and I just kind of felt a little behind by only speaking English. I would kind of just learn some phrases and get excited just to be able to speak it. And once you learn like the sounds and simple phrases, to get into grammar, AI is really helpful.
Outgera. Jeg gerir, þú gerir, hann hún það gerir, við gerum, þig gerir.
Especially for charts of learning verbs and conjugation and cases. So it's really helpful in that sense. And then, of course, if you have the opportunity to take a language class, that would be your best option.
Slava Ukraini. My name is Eric Ray.
Last year, I got the opportunity to speak at the Holodomor Remembrance Ceremony in Ukrainian. And so that was a big moment for me because I had to learn a new way of speaking Ukrainian, a more professional, formal way.
My name is Orisa Petrushin. I taught Eric Ukrainian language, culture, taught him about Ukrainian Holodomor. The lessons, first of all, started with a simple hello, добрий день, привіт, how are you, як ви, як це маєш, a simple conversation.
It also took a lot of confidence too to speak to hundreds of people in a language that you're not fluent in. Immersion is your best friend when it comes to actually learning the language. So while memorizing phrases and words is important later on, to actually get yourself involved and speaking more naturally, and especially listening and understanding what other people are saying, you got to be surrounded by the language. You got to be immersed in a place where people are speaking to you.
So what I learned from Eric, because his ancestors, he has varieties of different backgrounds. So this is unique because he can dance, he can actually speak, he can actually do varieties of different dialogues with others. And he was able to learn about the country, learn about the tradition. culture.
Something I really love about languages would be understanding where people are coming from, and humor is a big thing too, because I've been raised with like English humor and hearing jokes in English, but people can be far funnier in Spanish and Ukrainian.
Хлопці, вареники і
Голубці, вареники, що ще?
так, борщ.
Борщ, добре.
Та ти?
Що ти любиш?
Я люблю треники, вареники.
Вареники, добре.
О, я чув.
The phonetics are very beautiful, just different sounds that you never really make, and it's a very fun thing to learn how to do.
Still ahead, a proposal that will be remembered for years to come for a very special and shiny reason. Plus, Riley's back with the last check on our forecast. Stay with us.
Well, clouds build in as we get through the day on Wednesday, so a brighter start, but we do have that chance of some late day flurries rolling through as we get through the afternoon hours. The better chance the further north you go, so places like the Inner Lake looking at a good chance of some flurries tomorrow. At +1 in Winnipeg, by the time we get to the afternoon, looking at the winds picking up, gusting up to 40 even by the time we get to the evening hours. -1 on the way for Thursday. A better chance, I think, of seeing some flurries as we get into Friday. Windy, though. Northwesterly winds will really drag our temperatures down as that cold front sweeps through, down to -6 by the afternoon, -7 on the way for Saturday, and then we're back up toward the freezing mark and above freezing as we head into next week once again. Well, it is a moment every married couple probably remembers. Where you got engaged, the moment, the day, how you felt afterwards.
But for a Saskatchewan woman, the day was extra special. Her father designed and made her engagement ring. The unique design and surprise proposal is our daily lift.
It was a sunset horseback ride. It was such a beautiful evening. And then that's when he had stopped me and he said that he wanted to ask me something that he's been wanting to ask me for a while. And I was just like in shock, and I didn't even know like what he was doing until he pulled out the ring and I saw he was like tearing up, and that's when he had asked me if I would marry him. My fiance went to my dad because my dad's been in the jewelry business for 40 years. He's been a goldsmith for as long as I've known him.
I tell you, for some reason, I'm feeling a little nervous with this particular job. I've been doing this for 40 years.
Ever since I've known Bryce, like whenever we go to Yorkton, we always go to her parents' shop. So we've had lots of opportunities to be in and around the shop. So once I knew I was wanting to marry her, it was a pretty easy choice to just go to her dad, who's really good at it. And we went there for Christmas, and that's when I asked him for permission. And then I asked him to help me start getting the ring going. So I would just say like the uniqueness of it. There's not really many other rings that look like it. And then just the fact that it's also just made from her dad, I think it makes extra special.
I feel good about being a part of it. Being a part of my daughters, over the moon. Over the moon. Big time.
It's a beautiful ring.
Large diamond on
Yes.
that one. Wow.
I like that Dad had a hand in it. That is pretty cool.
And they kept the secret from Mom because they knew Mom couldn't lie. So they had to keep it away from her, too.
Mom's not good at keeping secrets.
Yeah, especially from the daughter.
Oh, well, we hope you have a wonderful night. We will see you back here tomorrow.
Yes, have a good one.